Oh, so welcome everybody to the November 17th utilities meeting. We're going to get started on our agenda with the loan application, DWSRF.
Okay, Jackie, I think you're going to take the lead on this. Yeah, just go ahead and then I'll jump in if I need to.
Okay. Well, we're diligently trying to meet the November 30th deadline. I sent a couple of documents to Charlie this afternoon, sent them off at 3:30, asking for her to review them, a resolution and a staff report. And finance, I have a meeting with finance tomorrow to help me through the financial end of things. What we were waiting for was just for the last chapter of the water system plan, which I got word yesterday afternoon that finance was okay with that. So we're going to diligently try. We don't hold out a lot of hope after reading through the application and going through the parts of it that I can do without finance. I don't hold out a lot of hope that we're a very good applicant because we aren't far enough along in the process as far as having permits and bid ready items. But at least getting the loan out there so that we can get some, or the application out there so that we can get some feedback to be more successful next year.
So for clarification, are you going to have that resolution on the agenda for the 24th?
I'm going to try. That's the date I put on the resolution that I sent.
Okay, so what that is it's a resolution. Oh, there's two Cindy's now. What that is it's like the you're like the bubblegum, the spearmint commercial. Anyway,
it's double mint, Mark.
double mint. That's right. The
oh, you're not going. You're gonna need to close one, Cindy.
I'm gonna do.
Whoa. There we go.
There we go.
So there's going to be a resolution that'll be basically like we've done with TIB or the status, where you basically just do a resolution saying if we get a grant, the city will move forward with it. So we'll have that on the agenda. I think if for some reason it gets pulled, then we won't have an application in this year. And again, we're not going to score well anyway. And I kind of talked to Jackie earlier about, we've got a lot of things we're trying to wrap up. So if we don't, from a priority standpoint, if you can get it done, fine, but it may be a lot of effort that could be expended elsewhere, but Jackie will manage her time on that. So that's that first item, unless anybody has questions. No?
Nope.
Okay. The next one is the 580 zone water campus update. And under that, we've got both the 580 zone, the tank and its current status, the 0.97 million gallon tank, and then what's happening on well 12. So I think if you go to your packets,
I've got it up on the screen, Mark.
okay. We've got a memo
From Greg Krabby.
And then we've got some nice pictures that basically show that the roof is going on. I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest with you. Oh, no, I'm not. I am not. No, I am not disappointed. Sorry, I retract that statement. This reservoir has the new roofing standard that is much better than the old. The old one used to be a series of little rectangles, and there were structural issues and corrosion issues that came with that type of roof. And this new pie shape is the current state of the art. So I'm glad to see that. So now if you have any thoughts on that, Jackie, but they're moving along.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. I'm impressed by their progress.
And then as far as well 12, I would like to say that there's anything to report there, but there isn't. It's still just sitting with the equipment on site. And we're really just kind of hung up in this Foster if then do loop for any of those that are old enough to remember Fortran. And so I think we could, if you don't have any questions, we can just move on to Foster pilot update.
Let me get my notes out here. So there was the Joint Task Force had a meeting last week on the 10th. A very interesting meeting. What they did was pulled in basically water rights officials from Colorado, Oregon, and Idaho, and had them give an overview of their programs and how they function. So that was really interesting to learn about. Oregon I was familiar with, but the others I had no idea. And they talked about the fact that the Joint Task Force was originally set up for the years of 2019 and 2020, but they realized that Yelm is the only one of the 5 Fosters that's close to submitting their final stuff for a report of examination from Department of Ecology. And that's because Yelm is the one who had the project to start with that the Foster was based on. So all they really had to do was just modify it to fit into the 3 tiers of the Foster fix regulations, the ESSB 6091. So the other 4 of us are still struggling where we're at with, but they have the 2 leaders, the co-chairs of the Joint Task Force, both expressed that they intend to go to the legislature and ask for at least 1, if not 2 more years of the Foster process, because it took ecology so long to get the net ecological benefits definition, which is step 3, and none of us could move forward until we had that. So we are right now, the status of Foster through Robinson Noble is we're about 80% through phase 1, step 1. And of course, we got held up on that because we discovered that new aquifer, QA4, that we didn't know about before. So the model, the hydrogeologists had to figure out how to fool the model into accepting or into taking into account that QA4. And we've also done probably, off the top of my head, I'm going to guess about 60 to 70% of the step 2 initial stuff that we can do before we complete step 1. And that is looking for where we might be able to purchase other water rights or obtain other water rights that aren't being used currently to replace water that we're taking out. So we basically stop or never put those into use. And then those water rights would then be able to be used for the city of Port Orchard. And then of course, step 3 comes after that, and that is the mitigation, the stream flow restoration, and those types of projects. So what we just received our contract with Robinson Noble, and of course they have 3 subs under them, but our contract with them is up at the end of this year. They have not yet used all of the budget that they had, but I did ask Joe Becker, the president of Robinson Noble, to give me what he expects to expend through the end of this year and what monies he would need for next year. So it looks like, and this is going to be sticker shock, but it looks like we're going to need an additional $191,000 for 2021.
Right. So what I wanted to add to that is just so this is a good news, bad news thing. I mean, the good news is we're in Foster. If without it, we would just be in a moratorium. Without it, so at least we have that. The downside is really this Foster train is we're just kind of on the train. And even though, Robinson Noble and our water rights attorney, Tom Pors, they have been giving us the deliverables, and they have been continuing to push us along. This is one of those scenarios where, we're not driving the train. And again, finding that new QA4, the model being wrong, the Joint Legislative Task Force having hiccups. Unfortunately, we're doing things. I would say that the majority of the work that we've accomplished and that we've paid for has checked the boxes in steps 1 and 2. But I certainly was hoping that we would be in step 3 and wrapping up in 2021, but I don't think I can guarantee that at this point. So this is like a death by 1,000 cuts. We have to bring this contract forward. I've asked Jackie to, do a contract time extension because their contract ends at the end of the year. But we also have, or amendment, but we also have to confirm how much money they've left off that they haven't spent in this cycle so that we can deduct that as a change order. So that's what you'll see hopefully on the 8th or the 15th. So any money that they haven't expended, it will come off the current contract as a negative. And then another change order that'll follow up that will then get them moving ahead for the next 2021, because we don't do carryover. You can carry over within a biennial budget, but you can't carry over at the end of a biennial budget. So the only way we can handle that mechanically is to provide a credit for the unexpended money, get them back to what they've expended, and then they're going to give us a number that they need to move forward on. So you'll be seeing that on the 8th or the 15th of December. And again, it's a necessary evil. We have to keep moving on this. It's critical. I kind of feel like the goal line gets moved on us continually, but at least we're on the field. I guess that's probably the best analogy, is they're moving the goal line on us, but at least we're playing, we're on the field to play. So,
well, I'm assuming that the anticipated carryover at the end of the year, the excess unexpended funds, did not calculate in any unexpended funds with the contract.
true.
So even though we're not technically carrying money over, that will provide a net increase in the anticipated amount that we would have available to start 2021 budget with. So technically it's not a carryover, but it will help mitigate the impact of the 2021 budget request.
That's exactly the case, John, that we already got with NOAA a while ago and said, hey, what did you when they do their month, their year-end cash, this wasn't included in that year-end cash that they were going to reprogram. So
Mark and Jackie, do you have any idea at all, ballpark figure of how much that would be?
I'm thinking it's like 100,000, isn't it, Jackie? Something like that.
What's left of their 2020 budget? I don't remember.
I thought at one time I saw back in October, I thought it was like 127.
I know that there's 137 left in Tom Poors's budget, and he didn't need an increase. So, but I don't.
So what do you anticipate the 2021 request to be?
Was it 191?
It's 191,000 plus whatever is unexpended from 2020.
So you confirm
Plus?
Yes.
Plus?
that?
Plus?
Yes.
So you confirm that he okay, then that's a big number. So okay.
Oh,
Tom Poors is one of the contract amendments that you signed, Mark.
Well, that was for Tom Poors. We're talking about Robin. Tom's basically he's just, in essence, we're just carrying his money over. With Robinson Noble, they're asking because he didn't need any more, but Robinson Noble is saying 100%, 191 on top of what they haven't expended.
Correct.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference. So you're talking a total request in 21 of almost 300,000.
Yeah.
Probably, yes.
Okay. Well, again, we're on a train that we're not driving, so. And we can't get off. I don't know what else we can do.
In reality, I know it's a lot of money, but in reality, we're lucky to be on the train. We're only one of 5.
I
know.
agree, but you know, this train is coming down the track. We may have to steal fuel from other trains that we thought we were gonna have to ride.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a bit of a bitter pill, so. Okay. If you don't have any other questions, you want to jump to the water system plan update?
Oh, I am so thrilled to report that this evening I received the final drafts of chapters 8 and 9. As soon as I finish reviewing everything, it's ready to go to the state.
And the drop dead date for that is,
If there is no drop dead date,
they've
unless
already,
if we apply for the DWSRF funding, then it has to be in by November 30th. So I intend on getting it in this weekend.
Good job. Good news.
It's been a long and arduous struggle.
since 2017.
Well, I've been at it since I started with the city, so.
Yeah, and so we're gonna get that hopefully wrapped up, and and we're gonna start working on the whole CFC rate conversations in 2021, so. I think there's nothing really stopping us from moving ahead, and I guess, Jackie, did we confirm that Katie Isaacson did or did not have scope and budget already with the BHC?
She hasn't gotten back to me yet, but she asked me, I would assume she does, because she asked me if she was to hold off. And I said, if it's not affecting chapter 9, to get chapter 9 done, then go ahead, as long as you have scope and budget. But she hasn't responded to me yet, so I would assume that she does.
Yeah, my preference is if she's got money and she's got basically a month and a half, that she could just wrap that up and just be
Right.
done. Then we can start to digest what she's completed in 2021.
Right, and I think that was her plan. We may need to do a small contract with her to help us through the process
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
the first year, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me make a note here. Okay. Okay, the splash pad. We're filled with all kinds of good news. So the splash pad we've selected, and just for the record, and we're recording, that $100,000 number, I mean, that was not a number that we came up with. That was a number that we were given by McCormick Communities on what they thought it was going to cost them to do this splash pad retrofit. So, you know, this is the number, $528,000, that we're now selected a firm, and we're going to start working on a scope and budget to do a VE process. We're thinking that VE is going to be about $10,000, that if we can hopefully spend $10,000 to save at least $100,000, you know, it's going to be money well spent. So we're about ready to, my hope is that that's going to be my hope is that'll be a contract potentially issued still this year, and maybe get that done this year, or we just get everything ready, Jackie, to do it as a 2021 immediate type of thing. I think we'd rather just start it in 2021.
Yeah,
'Cause
I haven't talked to Colby about it yet. I don't know what his workload is, but I know that was the direction you gave me today, was to work with him to get that accomplished.
Yeah, I think we can go through the selection process, but because we've got Thanksgiving and then we've got Christmas, and we only got 2 meetings in December, we could get everything set up so that they could be approved, let's say on the December 15th, but the actual VE won't start until January 1.
So those funds, where will those be coming from? The splash pad?
We had money that we had already allocated for this.
Right,
We're just short right now, so.
yeah.
So the fiscal impact at this point is none. We have money to do the study. We're just trying to see if there's anything that we can take out of this that is boilerplate, because that was one. I can't say for sure if the consultant that did the design designed it gold plated because they knew that they could bid on the work as well. So that's what we're going to really look at. It's a scenario where we confirmed in the beginning that there were only limited people that do this type of work. And we confirmed that they could do the design and still bid on it. That went against my prior world experience where if you develop specs, you couldn't bid on the work, but we confirmed with the attorney that you could. So we're just going to make sure that they didn't design themselves a really nice project that they could potentially get. So we'll find that out. You know, the proof's in the pudding kind of a thing.
Mark, where would the funds come from to make up the difference?
I think, no, Nick, I think we determined that we could have park impact fees that could fund some of that.
Yeah, we're proposing to add this project to our park impact fee calculation when we adopt the parks plan. So this will be a park expenditure. It could I don't know whether it's also in the water system plan or not. So that's another potential source of funding.
It's not.
It's not.
So yeah, park impact fees, I would say, are going to be the majority of that cost.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes. Park impact fees, yes.
Yeah, it's a park.
Yes.
Okay, so on the stormwater comprehensive plan, and just as a reminder, you're gonna have to sit through Zach's stormwater program update again, but I've asked him to push through it with no questions until the end, and because I think he was 25 minutes last time, 30. I think the mayor wanted him to push through it and get it done in 15. So I've asked him to make an announcement at the beginning, say, hey, I'm gonna push through this and I'll answer questions at the end. So
It's
Are you
not.
gonna tell the committee though,
what's
the
that?
results? Are you gonna tell the committee the results?
Oh, no, so I've added a little mini item. At the work study tonight, Zach's gonna do his presentation that he gave you guys. And then now, as far as the comprehensive plan, we did go through selection yesterday and we did interviews, Kennedy, Jinks, and Herrera. And we have initially selected Herrera. They were head and shoulders above Kennedy Jinks presentation wise, but we're still in the process of now we have to develop scope and budget. And as you all know, sometimes you go into that scope and budget phase and you have some fundamental disagreements or misunderstandings and you go to the number 2. So we've notified both Herrera and Kennedy Jinks. But if we can't work things out with Herrera to our satisfaction, then we would go to Kennedy Jinks. So really that's it. And, you know, the plan there is still that we're going to get either on the 15th or on the first meeting in January, which I think it's like the 9th or something. So either way, we've got this budgeted. We put in $400,000. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We're obviously not telling them that. Based on other cities our size that did comprehensive plans, that was I think the average was like 375 or something. So we will move into that phase here in the remainder of 2020. And again, if we can make the 15th, great. I don't know if we will or not, because the 15th is right around the corner when you start looking at needing to get Charlie everything by the 8th, and then the clerk by the 10th. So I think it's going to be the first meeting in January, to tell you the truth. But we do need to get them started. So if we don't have any questions on that, Port Orchard, Bremerton Water Service Area Agreement, Jackie.
This is basically Bremerton is going through their water system planning process right now. And for some reason, Cami, my counterpart there, believes that we need to have a service area agreement between Bremerton and Port Orchard. I can't find anywhere that it says it in any of the requirements. Besides that, we have a coordinated water system plan. But on the other hand, there's, you know, in the spirit of cooperation, I can't see a downside. Charlie has vetted this and it's fine with it. So we just wanted to bring it to you before it goes to council next week.
And I know that when we did our last water system plan update, and I think, John, you'll remember, that's when we, and Cindy as well, that's when we ran into that whole 260 zone old agreement. And that's when Bremerton, not Cami, but Kathleen Cahall got in trouble with her board because we had this agreement that had some 1968 fee structure for wholesale water and went, but that's because it was based on emergency. So their water system plan and our water system plan back then, we had Bremerton as an emergency intertie only. And to get our previous water system plan or our current water system plan approved, it had to be established in the plan, not as an emergency, but there's a different term for it. What is that, Jackie? It's
There's seasonal.
no, it was available. They had to allocate a certain amount within their, you know, because we allocate how much water. It couldn't be just an emergency use. They actually had to allocate X amount up to for like on demand available.
Continuous,
Right, continuous.
Continuous, yeah. So
continuous uninterrupted supply, I believe is the term.
uninterrupted supply, yes. And so because we had to get that language in our plan and they had to say that they would do that, that brought up this whole thing where then that whole schedule for rates completely changed. And that's where we got into that very expensive meter and all the things associated with it. So I could see the nexus of where this service area agreement update came into play. It came in with our last water system plan update, where they needed to provide us with an uninterrupted supply. And I think now that we have well 13 and well 9 back online, I don't know if we need that anymore. I think maybe the 260s back down to emergency only.
We turned it off. We've had it off for most of since the beginning of summer, except when we were having to work on well 7.
Right. The question is going to be, as we go through this process, are we still going to want to allocate so many cubic feet of uninterrupted?
I'd have to check on it, Mark, but I don't believe that the 260 Bremerton supply is being figured into the total water rights that BHC was looking at. I don't recall it being on the grid.
Yeah, we just have to confirm, because again, last time Pace, when they did the water system plan, they're like, hey, we need Bremerton to provide us uninterruptible service at X amount. So to me, again, this is where this came from, is the last plan that we adopted, and we're just looking at updating it. So if we need some nominal amount, because again, we've got everything in place now with the meter and the rates and stuff, I wouldn't hesitate to put some nominal amount in there, just have it in the plan.
Just a point of clarification, Mark, it just dawned on me, this doesn't need a resolution, does it? It just needs a staff report, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if it's an agreement, then it's going to be the staff report with the agreement.
Right, but I'm saying I don't need to get another resolution through Charlie, right?
No, because it's not, it's, a resolution is needed for a contract.
Right,
This is an agreement on its own
Right.
accord. Okay, I mean, you could do a resolution with it, but I don't think you need to. That would be a Brandy question. When do you think you're gonna take this?
I had every intention of getting it in on Thursday so that it can go to next week's.
Yeah, it's not gonna make it because Charlie would have had to have, she still needs to look at the agreement and everything.
I already looked at it, Mark. I had to do it a month ago.
Oh, okay, then get it on the agenda.
I think it is already.
Okay, so that's 11:24.
Yes.
So about the items that are highlighted in yellow,
That's the next item on the agenda.
I jumped the gun, sorry.
Okay, what was the question?
Yeah, what?
He's moving to the next item on the agenda.
I'm
Oh,
sorry that they're part of the agreement. When I was looking at it, it just kind of rolled into it. So
between, Jay, between the agreement and the next item are a couple of maps.
yeah, I got it there. I was looking at it from because it talked about charges.
Ah, okay.
Okay,
Question, in the map area, there appears to be a line between the city and McCormick Woods as an example.
the pink line.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the retail water service area, isn't it, Jackie?
Yes, I believe that pink area, the pink line is showing Bremerton's water service area. Because this was a Bremerton originated document. If you look at
it's
this,
that map right there that you're just scrolling up. If you look at that one,
okay, yes, this second map is our service area.
but there's a pink line that separates the city from McCormick.
Right, that's, so, yeah, so looking at that, you can see if, especially if you blow it up, you can see where the line comes up Anderson Hill to Anderson Clifton, and then it goes along the nice curvy bit. There goes along Old Clifton. Okay, so put your cursor forward, go up farther, Jackie. Keep going up, right there. See that nice curvy bit? That's Old Clifton.
The one I'm referring to is right there going south, going down.
Okay, that's,
Why does that separate the city of Port Orchard from McCormick Woods? Is that because of the old McCormick water system is a separate system? It's all in our service area.
Yeah, I believe so because the two systems have not been intertied.
right,
I think that's the issue.
But the map is for the retail service area.
right. It's showing, so you can see the Bremerton retail service area that is north and west of the intersection of Anderson Clifton.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Bremerton. I'm worried about the separation between Port Orchard and McCormick.
Yeah, that's because we don't have the intertie. So there are systems, but they're two systems.
Yeah, you see how it's titled here, City of Port Orchard, McCormick Woods. So it's showing
Right?
the McCormick Woods system that is owned by the City of Port Orchard.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's-
but it's the city of Port Orchard's retail service area, which is what this agreement is referring to.
Right. I think what they're doing, John, is just showing that the two water systems are still separate, as Mark was saying.
Okay, okay.
I mean, they butt up against one another because this up here says City of Port Orchard. This says West Sound Utility. These are maps. I'll tell you where these maps came from. I believe they came from the from the coordinated water system plan. And when the coordinated water system plan was put together, we didn't own McCormick Woods at that time. So it's been updated to show that we now own it. But I think at the time that we consolidate, that will go away.
But it says the map was created March 24th of 2020. So
So
the
this
map
is,
itself was created not that long ago.
Right. The map,
It's not worth spending a lot of
okay.
brain cells on. I'm just curious of why there's a separation between the city and the city.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
when
the
we're talking
580
about retail service area, not water systems. But
To me, it's the 580, 390 conversation, 260. You know, the 580, 660 is the McCormick system, and then the 260, 390 is the lower system, and we're looking
right,
at.
I appreciate there's a difference in the systems, Mark, but this map was supposed to be delineating the, as it says, water system plan, water utility, retail service area map for the city of Port Orchard.
Yeah, if you look at their legend, they're just showing all cities as yellow. So
Okay,
they-
it's,
again, it's KPUD's map, but yeah, I agree, it's confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one is CFC code amendments. And so Nick has joined us tonight because we had a meeting 2 weeks ago. And we had quite a robust conversation. We've had a request, I guess, to back into this and to set Nick up here. We had a request from a developer on Sydney Road, which we know we have the Sydney North and the Sydney South pump stations that are on our updated sewer CIP. And they were wanting us to confirm the credits that they were going to get. So we had some conversations with the attorney. We've had some conversations with the finance department. And I guess I can say that we aren't 100% in agreement yet. And so with that, Nick had looked at our current code, and actually had provided kind of a red line of anticipated changes that we felt might move forward, but because we didn't really have support to do that, I simply highlighted the areas that we might consider changing. So I guess with that, Nick, I'm going to let you kind of do a better job of explaining where we're
Right,
at.
well, let's start with the complicated issue. Scroll down one page to section 6.
You want me to turn loose of it and let you control, or I'm happy?
No, there's not that much to look at here.
Okay,
So the section 6 is the section of our current utilities code that provides that credits can be sought by developers who build facilities that are part of our CFC system calculation. And if you remember, we just amended the CIP and our sewer CFC a couple of months ago. And part of the reason was to add projects to that list so that developers could build them, but then get credit for having built them by reducing what they actually owe the city to connect into the city system. And so I was reading section 6B differently than how the finance department has been reading section 6B. And if you look at the last part of section 6, the last sentence says the credit shall be the lesser or the smaller of the following. And A is that portion of the design and construction cost of a latecomers agreement that is directly applicable to the construction of improvements that are the basis for the value of the sewer facilities charge. So what that means is that if you build a $1 million facility and your development uses 30% of that facility, you don't get credit for what your development uses, but you get credit for the surplus that is created. So you would, in that case, get a $700,000 credit towards your CFCs that are due. Under section B, it says that proportionate amount of the sewer capital facility charge that is attributable to the sewer facilities either constructed by the property owner or paid through a latecomers fee. And where things get complicated is that proportionate amount to me meant something different than what it means to finance. And what I've come to realize from finance is that they're reading that as being, if you build a $1 million facility off of our 10 project CIP, and our total CIP is $26 million, you get a proportionate share of that project as part of our CFC. So that in that case, it's $1 million divided by 26 million. So you get a pretty small amount because B is going to be less than A. And I need to do the math for my example real quick. So that's, you're getting about a 3% of the money that you spend on $1 million lift station, you're going to get back as a credit. And so from the standpoint of fairness, I think the purpose of having credits is to encourage people to build the facilities that you need to support growth in your city. And the way that we've structured this actually does not have that effect, because you can't, in a lot of cases, you aren't going to get very much money in credit because the Marina lift station is an $8 million project out of 26 million on our list. So you're never going to, what's going to end up happening is the city's going to get a facility built for it, and it's going to collect the fees for that facility. So it's almost a situation where we're collecting twice for the same improvement.
Yeah, no developer's gonna do that.
So I think A is problematic from a collecting more in value than we're actually than is actually justified by our fee calculation. But at least in that situation, you're getting a pretty sizable credit. But unfortunately, B is usually going to be less than A, and doesn't offer very much in the way of a credit. And so because there are two developments right now who are looking at credits and are hoping to seek these, one of them has now requested that credit, and we're looking at this saying, wow, they're going to be really unhappy if we come back and tell them that they only get, a 3% of a $2 million facility, which is what they're proposing to build as their credit. So it's our hope that the utility committee is supportive of bringing forward amendments to make sure that this credit is more about encouraging people to build out our system so that we aren't spending staff resources on doing those sorts of projects.
Well, it really is something that is more related to the improvement that they're making specific to their development, and not as it relates to the total capital improvement plan.
Right. If they build a project that benefits them,
Right.
then there is no credit. They have to build a project that has.
I appreciate that, but use the water tank as an example. They built a water tank larger than what they need to serve their property. So they're getting the credit of that portion that serves their property.
No, they're getting a credit for the portion that.
For the other portion, excuse me, they're getting it for the other portion, not what serves their property. You're right.
And there's another.
But it's as it relates to that water tank, it's not all the improvements that need to be made for the entire water system.
There's another aspect to this too. When you're using the Marina pump station as an example, that's an existing facility that is being upgraded and replaced. And that means the part of that facility that's being replaced for current customers, that replacement cost really should be paid out of rates and not sewer CFCs.
Yeah, that just gets.
That further muddies the water. No
Yeah,
pun.
it does muddy it, but I see the logic in it.
Yeah, it just has another layer. So I think the key thing here is to understand is, Public Works and DCD have a certain view, which is if a developer is willing to cash flow a project, design it and build it, and we obtain that facility, there's a benefit to us. And we, I think Nick and I and Jackie collectively hope that we can have something in the code that makes it viable for that developer to go down that path. Unfortunately, I think the finance department has some issues with cash flow to get all the projects done on the CIP and doesn't necessarily see it that way. So we just wanted to bring this to your attention that before we respond back to this particular developer, we really do need to make sure we're all on the same page, and we got to figure out where we're going to go on this.
And I would say that 6A, at least I think, creates an incentive for somebody to build a facility, even if it's not 100% fair, and that you're still going to pay a CFC or you're still going to eat some of the cost of building that facility because you're not getting 100% credit. But I think that if this code were to be amended so that it included 6A, rather than saying the credit shall be the smaller of the following, it should say the credit shall be A, and then insert that text and delete B. I think in that case, at least your is an interim step that may help. That will help both cash flow the projects that we're trying to build as a city, while not totally shutting down development in areas where these facilities are lacking. And I would add that one of the two projects that we're talking about, I think, well, really both of the projects actually, they're going to build a facility that's much larger than what the individual project needs. So they're actually opening up areas of the city to develop that can then contribute to these other projects that are on our list. And in the absence of those lift stations being built, we've got entire, 100-acre chunks of the city where you just can't build anything right now because the developers aren't coming together to agree to split the cost fairly. And this is a way for one of them to move ahead without depending on other people to form an LID or something along those lines.
Well, I certainly support your premise. I think it really makes a lot of sense because you've got some larger developers that can afford to make that investment. And until an investment is made, whether it be by a developer or the city, the smaller developers aren't going to be able to do anything. So your thought of once they put it in, the smaller developers can come in and start developing those extra properties. So I like it.
So the committee would be supportive of taking this to a future meeting for full council discussion?
Yes,
I'm 1 of 3. I'm supportive.
I'm supportive.
Yeah.
So I think what we would propose to do then is to kind of finalize some red line changes and bring forward a red line version for discussion that does eliminate this option B, which is really the one that is a deal killer, I think, in most instances. But we'll continue to work with the attorney on developing the exact language that would move this forward.
Yeah, I think that's good. Thanks.
And then the easier one is the single family, multifamily issue. So
Yeah, so under section 1 of this 13.040401, we've defined that all residential units are an ERU regardless of the size of the unit or the type of unit. And this is different than what our water or our sewer system plan says. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jackie, but I believe that for multifamily apartment type units, the system plan actually envisions those as being 3/4 of an ERU rather than a full ERU because they're discharging less sewage compared to a single family house. And so I think in terms of looking at individual projects going forward, right now we're also using terms in the sewer chapter that are not consistent with the development code, where we talk about one single family unit, whether detached or attached, and configured as an apartment unit, condo unit, townhome, or any other configuration. And I think that apartment units in an apartment building are typically going to have a lower discharge. I do think that attached single family like townhomes, where you have a 3-bedroom townhome that's 1,800 square feet, is probably similar to a house. And I think that we should be going through through this section and actually referring back to chapter 20 and saying a single family house is 1 ERU, a duplex, each unit is 1 ERU, a fourplex, which is typically a more of an apartment type unit, would be 0.75 ERUs per unit, and really try to make sure that our assessment fits the actual discharge of the unit type.
Do either of you have an explanation of why an apartment would use less water?
Because the persons per household number for a house in Port Orchard is 2.51, and the persons per household for an apartment is 1.8. So
This needs to track forward into whatever we're talking about here for sewer, needs to track forward into water also. And the reason for water, not only the household size, but also in apartments, there's generally in an apartment complex, there's generally water irrigation meters rather than people using water for their outside watering.
Yeah, that's true. And one thing that, you know, when we do a commercial development, we actually do an ERU calculation for the facility. So, I mean, I think that if you were doing a very unique apartment project, and let's say you were doing nothing but studio apartments, or you were doing nothing but 3-bedroom apartments, I think there's the potential that you would want to actually study the project and come up with an ERU estimate for the building based on what's actually proposed rather than using a flat amount. And so right now we're assigning a flat 1 ERU per unit, regardless of what the unit looks like, and there's no exceptions or opportunity for review. And I think the better option here would be to actually look at, or at least give them the option to evaluate their building and do the study and say, you know, the units that we're putting in are high efficiency, smaller units, or there's a mix of them, and the bigger units are going to get a full ERU, but the smaller ones are going to get a half an ERU, or maybe they have a big rec center or a swimming pool, which skews things slightly.
But when it comes to sewer usage or water usage, just because they have a rec center, is the rec center going to pay for an ERU?
Yes, we
Or do
usually
they
would
get a
charge a
free ride?
commercial.
I see.
If
Yeah,
you
we
put
have
in a,
its own meter and sewer connection.
So the water that's used for irrigation and all of that, that's also taken into consideration amongst the or units?
No, they're generally, if it's a large apartment complex, the complex itself will pay for the water for irrigation, and so they'd have a separate meter rather than on the buildings.
so I think the point here is that as long as we're amending this section, we have an opportunity to touch this piece right now. This isn't as urgent. I think the urgency is related to the credit issue because we have pending applications. And so if the committee wanted to look at this now, we can put something together, but we could also defer it for when we have the same conversation as part of our water discussion down the road in a few months.
I'd like to defer it, make part of the water discussion. I think there's a lot of possibilities, as John was bringing up, at least what I think you were bringing up, John, differences in size of households, et cetera. And so I'd like to defer it and put it in with the water.
I would agree. I think it's a little bit more of a complex issue too. We need to be able to understand it better, I guess.
So for the sewer credit issue, we're only going to talk about the sewer credits right now, and the water credit language, which is identical, isn't going to change yet. But that's also because we haven't updated our water system plan yet. And as soon as the water system plan is updated, we would bring similar language forward under the water portion of the code.
That makes sense.
Okay, so you want to talk about section 6 at a future work study, but not necessarily section 1.
And we don't have a work study other than tonight. So I don't know if there's time to add it on as just to mention it to council and then put it on as a discussion item at a regular meeting. Because I think January is already pretty full study, and the application for the credit is in now.
Well, we could do,
Why don't we add it to tonight?
I don't think we're ready because we need the red line.
Oh, okay.
I think we could add it as we can add it as a discussion item on the
Next week?
Next week.
Yeah, next week.
Well,
No?
I don't think we can, I think it'd have to be the 8th.
Why don't we do this? When you feel you're ready to bring it forward, whether it's a council meeting or a study session, bring it to the next available one.
Yeah, Nick, I propose a discussion. Because
That sounds good.
Yeah, we have to get with Charlie and Noah, and the clerk has to have everything by Thursday to get it on next week, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at least Cindy could report next week on a committee report that that's an item that we're proposing to bring forward.
Yeah.
For full council
please do.
discussion at the next, so we give them a heads up.
Yeah, absolutely. And she can also give them a heads up that we're gonna have a foster,
No. No.
sorry, Madam Chair.
That and
Okay.
COVID, you know,
Well,
Happy New
Good
Year.
job, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Questions? Go to the order? No?
Except that for sure that splash pad expense is going to go to the parks budget, correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we've all agreed that we have the ability to use that fund.
Sounds good. to-
We're just trying to determine.
The
again,
splash pad has turned out to be a pretty expensive project.
Well, yeah, I mean, but again,
Very popular project.
Except that we can't even use it.
we
Well,
designed,
That was our fault.
but remember when we designed it as a
COVID.
flow through, we did that because it was right when Bremerton was having issues with theirs and we didn't
I
want to.
know all this stuff. Yeah, it's all good.
And evidently, one of the water treatment specialists that I've been talking to explained to me that they had just helped Yelm through with their recirculating splash pad that cost right in the neighborhood of $1 million.
So,
I think we're going to turn this into a giant bubbler.
yeah, well, we'll get the cost down as much as we can, and then we got to figure out how we can park all those people that want to use it that are coming from Tacoma and Seattle. So,
Oh yeah, the roundabout now. Okay.
Well, my understanding is that the fire district is maybe looking at a different site now. So that we may have some parking opportunities.
I'm hoping that that's the case. So
There-
anyway,
There's a concept called demand management. It deals with parking fees.
yeah. Well, the problem is there's a lot of, well, we put signs up on Old Clifton because that was bypassing, that was some intuitive demand management, but yeah, the good news is McCormick's moving ahead, community's moving ahead with North and Campus Parkway, that road. So that gives us access to the park from the west and some additional parking when they get that moving. So it's finally happening. I mean, John, how many years ago did Ron Seepco push and clear that Microsoft Northwest Corporate Campus
Yeah,
in the early 90s? I think it's been sitting there as a dirt
Yeah.
bike. So it's nice to see that actually coming to fruition.
I agree.
Okay, well, I think we are done at 6:02.
O2.
So thank you very much, and we'll see you in 20.